2,910 Floridians leave Florida for North Carolina every single month, mostly for beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. But while I love this place, it's not for everybody, and there's actually 7 reasons why most Floridians regret leaving Florida, starting with missing the coastline and missing the beach. If you're used to anytime access to the beach, being off work, towel in hand, toes in the sand, within 20 minutes after you get off work, you're gonna have to kiss that goodbye. I remember when my clients, Julie and Clayton, first moved up from Florida, they used to talk about how they used to be able to watch in Florida the rocket launches from their back patio because they were so close to the coast. And if you want to go down to the beach, at most it's like 30, 40 minutes out to some really great beaches. Maybe if you want to make a really big trip, maybe an hour, hour and a half. But here, especially in Charlotte, it's much more of a commitment. Now we got the Outer Banks to the east. If you want to go up to like Virginia Beach, it's going to be a little bit further. And if you want to go down to like say Myrtle Beach or Charleston, it still is all very drivable. You're within 3.5, 4, maybe 4.5 hours, depending on where you're going. Now, even if you can put up with the beach being out of reach, the second reason that you might regret moving to Charlotte is going to be the 4 seasons. You're either born and raised in Florida, or you moved to Florida probably because you didn't want to put up with winters anymore, and you're not used to winters anymore. All my clients that are coming up from Florida want to make sure about holding on to warm winters. And I remember the very first time when I visited Charlotte, my buddy Max picked me up when I was visiting the city. We went to college together, and it was snowing, and I was like, goodness, bro, like, I hate it when all winter long, gray and getting snow. And he's like, no, actually, this is insane. This is the only snow we've gotten all year long. And I got moved here for work, so I was there the rest of that winter. It's the only snow I saw the rest of that winter. It was like 2 inches of snow, one and done. And it was January. I remember I was dressed exactly like this, shorts and a t-shirt, playing tennis. It was sunny, it was breezy, a lot like this. And from that winter onwards, I was absolutely sold. Now, in the springtime, if you got allergies, be warned, everything gets coated in this orange-yellow dust of pollen blowing everywhere and caking and covering up everything. And so if you're sensitive to pollen, we got a lot of it, and a lot that is going to be unique to Charlotte. So even if you might be used to it, not have allergies somewhere else, you're probably going to have allergies for at least a couple of years until you get used to it. During the summer, doesn't get too hot, at least not compared to Florida, it's nothing. And during the fall, it's like living in a postcard. There's so many beautiful, all these trees are rich yellows and golds and reds and oranges. It's super, super beautiful, and especially out by the Blue Ridge Mountains. Very big tourist attraction because of how beautiful North Carolina is in the fall. Now, while the weather doesn't get too wild, what about the life, the wildlife? It gets pretty wild around here. That might be the third reason you could regret moving to Charlotte. We have a lot of animals, a lot of bugs, a lot of things that you might not be a huge fan of and might be a deal breaker. I remember last fall, I was hiking one beautiful autumn day with Eden, my girlfriend, out on the Blue Ridge Parkway, when all of a sudden we were just chatting, going along, having a merry, wonderful time, and she froze mid-sentence. And what are you saying? She was like, bear right there. We both froze for a second and then made a lot of noise and just kept clapping and walking along our way. And it kind of bumbled its way off from the trail. It wasn't on the trail, thank God, I would have freaked out. But yeah, you got to be bear aware. That's just a thing down here. We don't have gators. Well, actually, I take that back. Eastern North Carolina on the coast, it does in fact have gators. Not nearly as many as Florida though. But you got to be bear aware. We have lots of snakes, cottonmouths, copperheads, all snakes do exist here. They're not like, I've only seen a couple snakes ever, and I've never seen any poisonous ones here. But it's, you know, it's something you got to be aware of. Don't wade into tall grass unless you know what you might be getting yourself into.
A few moments later.
That is one giant snake that I just saw right now. I don't know what kind that is. I don't with it at all. I'm maintaining a safe distance. I think it's non-poisonous, but I'm not trying to find out. There are coyotes. There are wild foxes and, you know, lots of deer, ton of deer. There's also bugs. We got a lot of spiders. If you don't like spiders, you will see spiders. They get in your house, even if it's a newer house, a little bit more energy efficient, more sealed up house. And anytime you go hiking, especially if you go hiking out in any sort of wildlife situation like that, always check yourself, check your pets for ticks afterwards, because it is a thing. And, you know, if you don't check for that, one, they're just nasty. And two, you can get Lyme's disease. So just be really, really careful. And I almost forgot to mention wasps and hornets. I've seen so many of them. I don't know why they're so active here, but they build up nests quick. So especially if you're super allergic, just always carry an EpiPen, which I suppose is just like, general advice anyways, but always be aware. Don't taunt them. They don't like that. Now, even if the wildlife is okay and you're cool with that, the fourth reason that you might regret moving to Charlotte is going to be actually the social life, not the wildlife, because the social life itself isn't too wild, and that's probably the biggest reason. Now, a slower pace of life is one of the big draws to the area, especially for people that want to trade nightlife and, the clubs of Miami for maybe Fort Mills Strawberry Festival or something, switching it out for more family-oriented type things. That said, though, one of the things I didn't know going into this is that small talk and all the pleasantries that come along with talking about sports and the weather and that sort of stuff is not only like a nice thing, it's not only common, it's expected, it's a requirement, and if you don't do it, people look at you like you're a weirdo. I remember when I had first moved here, sitting in one of my first project meetings as a robotics engineer that got assigned to a project here in Charlotte, I remember sitting there and just thinking like, oh my God, we've been talking about nothing for like 15 minutes. And I just come from a project in Boston, which is very, very about as East Coast as you can get. And so I was like almost uncomfortable sitting there. And then we finally got down to business. I started going through my agenda very efficiently, trying to make sure that we didn't run over and we were on time. And I got to the end of it, and my boss kind of looked at me afterwards when we were in private and was like, dude, what was that? Like, you can't do that. You gotta chop it up. You gotta talk about all the small talk stuff, the weather, their kids, their grandkids, what they did last weekend, what they're doing this coming weekend. And I learned throughout the job, like, especially on Mondays, the first 15, 20 minutes of the day was almost always devoted to just asking what everybody was up to, how it was hanging out with their grandkids that weekend. Oh, you went to the water park, that's so fun. Yeah, they had such a great time, and all that sort of small talk is really important here, and is how people bond, is how people get together and get along. And it's also kind of crazy. I remember I would get invited to barbecues and family events and neighborhood events and stuff with people that I barely knew at work, because it was just so normal. And it was very, after I got used to it, it was very refreshing, but especially at first, I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. And so if it's not your cup of tea, then I don't know, don't come here. If you're not friendly, don't come here. But if you would like to be around people that are more friendly, you might really like it. Now, while the slower pace in Southern hospitality is probably a pro and not a regret, one reason you might really regret moving here has to be this weird phenomena where the Southern hospitality goes out the window as soon as people step into their car and get on the road. I don't know what it is. People just lose the smiles and all the warm welcomes and lose their minds as soon as they get behind the wheel and on the road here. And everybody blames all the people that have been moving here. But I know some of the people that have lived here their entire lives and see how they drive. It's everybody's problem, I guess. I don't know. Driving 15, 20 over the limit seems like the norm. Like, that's what everybody does. And there's exit 3 on I-77 is literally known as the war zone, because it's where all these lanes merge and then separate again. And there's literally some kid, I think for one of the banks, literally made a video game simulator so that people could see how horrible it is trying to get on and off of this exit. It's literally like nationally famous. It went viral on Instagram. That said, compared to I-95, is really not that bad. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. Florida also notorious for terrible, terrible roads, potholes everywhere. The road quality is really good, and there's also so much connectivity. Even though there are toll lanes, you don't have to use them. And probably the biggest change you got to get used to is that during the winter, coming from Florida, there are sometimes some icy road conditions. My girlfriend called me in a panic one day from Asheville because she was trying to get up this tiny hill. The road was kind of icy and she couldn't get enough momentum going up the hill to get over it. So I'd help step her through that. Coming again from the icy Midwest, I knew exactly what to do. That said, it's not a huge change. And also, North Carolina car insurance is a fraction of what it is in Florida. Now, even if you brave people are ready to brave the North Carolina roads year round, what you might not be willing to brave is the food, because the reason you might regret moving to Charlotte has to be that the food kind of sucks. If you love your authentic Cuban coffee and the fresh Latin flavors that seem to be on just about every street corner in SoFlo. You're gonna have to kiss those goodbye because it's just not the same here remotely. We do have a decent selection of international flavors here in Charlotte. Like personally, I love Indian food. We have a lot of, well, I think we have a lot of good Indian food. We also have a lot of good Latin food and other stuff, but it's nothing compared to SoFlo or really any of Florida, because I feel like Florida is really known. Maybe it's the tourism, maybe it's just the Latin influence, but there's a lot of really great food that we haven't really caught up with. Charlotte's a pretty big city, and so it's growing. There's a lot of new restaurants and new places that are opening up. I feel like I'm finding new ones just about every week. But even now, after being here for years, but that said, it just still isn't nearly as good. And also, like, I eat very clean. I pride myself on that, and I used to be exclusively a water drinker. And shortly after I met my girlfriend, she handed me a giant sugar-filled cup of sweet tea, which is hilarious because she's also born and raised in the Carolinas, but also very, very health conscious. And she was like, "Here, try this." I was like, "Ew, sweet tea." Like, no, that's not me. She was like, "No, try it." And I took about 2 sips, and ever since then, I've been oddly addicted, even though I know it's basically just liquid sugar. It's so delicious, and I can't help myself. Maybe not every day, but at least at family get-togethers and that sort of thing, it's a great treat. Southern comfort food is huge here. If you have never had a Bojangles Cajun biscuit, you got to at least, or Cajun chicken biscuit, you got to at least try it. And I mean, to give you an idea, there's the Bojangles Coliseum here. Need I say more? So the big question, is Charlotte right for you? I have no idea. I don't know your situation, and I'm just some random guy on the internet, so you can't take my advice anyways. Don't take any random stranger's advice unless they know that your situation and care about you. So if you're curious but you're not sold, check out all my other videos. They're all about moving to Charlotte. You should really check out probably the pros and cons video. Breaks down Charlotte in a lot of detail. And if you want to get a feel for what's out there and if there might be any homes here that match your tastes, scan the QR code and I can send you a list of homes that would be a sample. And maybe you'll find your perfect home. Until next time, my name is Lucas Roller, your realtor in Charlotte, and take care.